welcome to this week's Natural Gardening Live with me, Josie, your natural gardening coach. Today we are talking about how you can change the pH of your soil naturally. A little bit of background about pH. pH is a measure of how acidic a substance is. So in this case, it's the soil in your garden. pH ranges from 0 to 14, 7 being neutral. So anything less than 7 is acid, and anything more than 7 is alkaline. So if you run on that scale. Yes, so the pH of the soil can affect how plants take up nutrients. So it's quite an important thing to know, really. You don't know how your plants react to different soils if you don't know what soil you've got either. So it's quite an important thing to know. So it can affect how plants take up nutrients. Some plants like the more acidic soil, azaleas, camellias, they like more acidic soil. Now, they will take up the nutrients much more effectively in an acidic soil, whereas a lot of plants in your garden, which you'll be growing in your garden now, will veer more towards the alkaline neutral band. So then that will help them to take up the nutrients more effectively. So by knowing what you've got in your garden, by knowing what pH is, you know how to support the plants better that are growing in your garden. So if you're growing acidic plants, or you're trying to grow acidic soil-liking plants, honestly, words are hard, and you're growing them in a more of an alkaline to neutral soil, they're going to like it very much. And the same if you're trying to grow any plant really in a more that doesn't like acidic soil, and you're trying to grow them in an acidic garden, they're not going to like it either. They're not going to live very well, and you're going to start showing signs of stress very quickly. So why it's a good, useful thing to know. You can only know the pH of your garden, of the soil, and it may vary from area to area in your garden, depending on what the history of the garden is, what's grown there, what's been done with that soil in the past. The only way you're going to know this is by testing the soil. If you have got, you can get litmus test kits, which are quite freely available. In fact, both of these methods that I've got on here are freely available. So you can get a litmus test, which is basically a little vial you can get and buy a kit, usually a little square box. You can get it from the garden centres or from Amazon or wherever. And you can put the soil into liquid, shake it up, and then put the litmus test paper in, and it will tell you on the scale of colours where you sit, whether you're acid or alkaline. Now you can also get a probe system. Various different names for them, but they've got electrodes with a gauge on the top. You water the ground, you push the electrodes into the ground, and then the gauge will tell you from acid to alkaline to acid, or acid to alkaline, whichever way you're looking at it, where your soil sits. So it'll give you a good idea, good reading from that. And that's quite easy to do. So you can just water different areas of your garden and then stick the probe in to see where it changes throughout your garden. So they're really easy, and they're so freely available. You can buy them in garden centres, so you can get them on Amazon if you haven't got a garden centre near you. So they are really useful things to have, and it's good to know what your soil's doing, especially if it's a new garden to you, or you've never really checked before and you're having trouble growing things and you wondered why. It's good. How can you change the pH of your soil? Get to the point, woman. How can you change the pH of your soil naturally? So, there are loads of products out there on the market that will help to change the pH of your soil, usually chemical products or man-made like compounds, if you like. But there are also so many different, we've got a few examples here for you, so many different natural substances, if you like, things you can find in your kitchen a lot of the time that will actually do the job for you, and they're usually free. So what more can you ask for? To the pH of your soil to more acid naturally. So coffee grounds, if you use those on container plants that like a bit more acid in the soil, they're very effective. You can use them as a nice mulch around the roots of the plants. You can dig them into the compost as well. So they're very effective, and they're just chuck-awayable things. You can put in your compost heap or whatever. So they're freely available if you drink a lot of coffee. Pine or conifer compost. Now, if you live in an area that has got a lot of pine trees growing, or conifers and plants like that, and in that family, the pine family, that would suggest that the soil is naturally a little bit more acidic anyway. But the leaves, or the needles, if you like, from pine trees, when they compost down, create very acidic compost. That's a very good way of conditioning the soil into becoming a bit more acid as well. Compost tea. Compost tea is very effective, and it's the liquid runoff, if you like, from compost. So you can get compost like containers that has the tap at the bottom, so you can run the compost tea out. It has a little reservoir that it stores the tea. It's very effective liquid feed for plants, but it's also very good for acidic-liking plants because it makes the soil more acidic when you water with it. So compost tea is a very good way of altering the pH more towards the acid, more towards the acid, it's going the wrong way, for your garden. So coffee grounds, pine or conifer based composts, and compost tea. That's the three I've got ideas. There are hundreds out there, but I'll just give you three. to start you off, you know. It's a really good way of making your soil more acidic. To make your soil more alkaline naturally, you can use the good old faithful organic matter. Now, if you're conditioning your soil naturally with well-rotted manure or homemade compost or anything like that, as long as it's not pine or conifer needle compost, that would naturally be neutralising your soil. So whether it's coming down from acid into alkaline, any sort of leaf mould, homemade compost, normal compost, or well-rotted manure, it has to be well composted and well rotted, or it still contain too much of the breakdown acids, so that would make it naturally more acidic. So when it's well rotted, really good quality compost that you've made, that will definitely help to make your soil more alkaline. Mulching with this would help as well. So as we said before about how mulching helps to condition soil, when you mulch around with these as well, with all varieties of different organic matter, when you mulch, it breaks down into the soil, and then that over time will then alter the pH of the soil into more alkaline as well. So mulching with organic matter and using it as a general conditioner. And wood ash. Now, how many of you have a log burner or a multi-fuel stove or even a chimney in your garden? Wood ash is actually an incredibly good pH neutralizer. So don't throw it away, don't put it in the compost. Well, you could put it in the compost as well, but you know, it's very good because it contains good levels of calcium and lime as well. Calcium and lime play really strongly into the favour of neutralising the soil. And it also contains very good levels of potassium. So if you need to support a plant's root system or the early sort of growth, and before you need to add in any nitrogen, wood ash is incredibly effective at things like blossom end rot as well. So if you're planting tomatoes, if you put a bit of wood ash in the bottom of random things pop into my brain, and put into the bottom of the hole that you're about to plant the plant in, that will then seep into the roots, seep into the compost as well, and then feed the roots with good levels of potassium and calcium, and then help the plant fend off blossom end rot as well. So there's lots of uses for wood ash, but it's very effective at neutralising acidic soil to make your soil more alkaline. There you go. That's just, as I say, 3 from each side for you to get you going, but there are hundreds of different ways that you could make pH neutralisers or pH more acid soil. There's loads of ways of doing it, but I didn't want to blow your mind today, as you say. So yes, so hopefully you'll now go out and you'll go and find out what your pH is in your soil. You can control it, you can change it as you want, you can grow the plants you want to grow rather than being controlled by what your soil tells you, and you'll love it. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you've got any questions, post them below this video. On that note, I'll see you all later.